Let's go ahead and add a different transition in between these two. Let's say one of these iris ones. Let's say an iris cross. I'll go ahead and replace the additive dissolve. You can adjust the settings of any transition by just selecting it and going to the Effect Controls panel. Let me make this a little bit larger. Notice that by selecting it, we see some information about this transition in here. We see, for example, a brief description of what the transition is. We see what the transition duration is. We see what the alignment is. We see an A and a B, start and end, and if we scrub this, we see exactly what it is that the transition is going to be. We can also play it in here, and you will see this little thumbnail playing. You can change other things as well. You can change the duration. We can make it longer or shorter. We can have it center at cut. You can see it modified right there. And we can also change where this transition actually starts. So where in the image this part in here will be. That is what this little circle indicates. So I can go ahead and move this, say here, to the top right-hand corner, and that's where it moves in here. Now, that's a different transition than what we had before. I can move it to the other side, and the transition responds accordingly. Depending on which transition I have, I'm going to have different settings that I can change. Let's go ahead and change this transition to the Iris Diamond. Let's go ahead and click on it so that we can see the settings here in the Effect Controls panel. And we see in here pretty much the same type of parameters that we can change. If we go a little bit lower, if we scrub down, we can choose to see actual sources, and we can add a border. I can change the border width from 0 to 4 or 5, and you start seeing the border right here on the screen. You can also change the border color by clicking on this swatch. Say we want it red. And you can also change the anti-aliasing quality of the border. Anti-aliasing refers to a blur effect that is applied to the edges of this border to give the illusion of softness. So we can set this to high, and these edges are just going to look a little bit softer than they did before. You can also reverse this transition by clicking here, meaning instead of the diamond becoming larger, it's just going to become smaller to let the transition happen. Let's go ahead and go back to the original one. This part here in the Effect Controls panel is a mini representation of the timeline. You can see both clips here playing at the same time. You can perform ripple edits on both sides. You can move the time location of the transition, so you can perform a slip in here. And of course, you can elongate the transition. You can make it longer and or shorter. You can also do that directly in the timeline.